Yes, sir. You start and then we'll go here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to ask this question. So, you recently, in your last visit to the USA, you made a tweet speaking directly to Sikhs in India and abroad. And in that, you talk about what India under the BJP would look like, where you ask, will you be allowed to wear gadas? Would you allowed to wear turbans under the BJP? So you create a fear amongst the Sikhs about what the BJP would look like. But you talked about how politics should be fearless. There should be nothing to be afraid of, right? But we don't just want to wear garas. We don't just want to tie our turbans. We want freedom of expression, which under the Congress Party in the past has not been allowed. For example, the Anandpur Sahib resolution, which you're probably familiar with, talks about these Dalit rights, right? Rights of water. It talks about better working conditions, anti-monopoly. It mentions nothing of separatism, but it's labeled as a separatist document. This is something your party has done, and your party seems to lack the maturity to accept the mistakes it has made, such as Sajjan Kumar just now being tried. And there's many more Sajjan Kumars currently sitting in the Congress Party. KPS Gill is hailed as a hero, yet you tell us to fear what the BJP India would look like. But you've never really tried to reconcile
what's the
with the
question?
Sikhs.
Yeah, no. I think it's a minute now.
What's your question?
The point
Yes,
is,
I will get to my
So what's the
question.
question?
You haven't tried to reconcile with the Sikhs. What attempts are you making? Because if you continue like this, BJP is also going to make its way into
No,
Punjab. right?
first of all, I don't think that really anything scares the Sikhs. That's the first point. The statement I made was that, look, do we want an India where people are uncomfortable to express their religion? As far as mistakes of the Congress Party are concerned, a lot of those mistakes happened when I was not there. But I'm more than happy to take responsibility for everything that the Congress Party has ever done wrong in its history.
The question is, what are you doing to reconcile? If
I
that's what want
have been
answer
to the
That was my question.
Yeah.
I have been I have publicly stated that what happened in the 80s was wrong. I have been to the Golden Temple multiple times. I have an extremely good relationship with the Sikh community in India and a loving relationship with them.
Question here.
Hey, hi Rahul, I'm Asad. The Bharat Jodo Yatra came up multiple times, but it was also a very controlled and non-confrontational sort of march. I wanted to ask that, given that some of the BJP's biggest political setbacks in the past decade has been through street-level disruptive protests, whether it be the farm laws or the anti-CA-NRC protest, why has the opposition shied away from initiating such protests? Like, for example, you said the election commission has been compromised. Why not do an immediate gherao or a chakka jam in front of an election commission until the demands are met?
We do, but there is a very powerful repressive structure and element that stops us, right? And that's not really visible, but there is a big machine that stops all these types of activities, threatens people, attacks people. We've been involved in a number of these agitations. We were involved in the farmer protests. We were raising it in Parliament. We were raising it outside Parliament. Our party was involved in it, and we pick up these type of protests. But you have to realize there is a system of repression in play that is very aggressive and stops them. I'll give you an example. When the Agniveer issue came up, we started organizing a lot of the Agniveers, and then one fine day, all the people who had lost their jobs because of the Agniveer were called up and said, listen, if we see your face protesting, you will never get a government job again. And that was the end of the protest, right? So there's a hidden machine that attacks these type of protests.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gandhi. My question is very, very simple. Effectively asking, why are you coming here at this time now? Just out of curiosity.
Because Ashutosh invited me.
Sure, but why did you
and
accept this invitation to come and speak now at this institution?
Because I respect him and I like the work he does. And I thought it would be an interesting conversation. It would be nice to meet young people and understand what they're thinking about.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, I was wondering that given that India is the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases, to what extent do you think it is the role of the Indian government to mitigate these emissions?
I think it's an important part of what the government should do. And I think making a transition to green, more environmentally sound energy is a good thing. And it's a strategic imperative as well. So I would support that.
Yes.
Thank you for coming and speaking with us. So you often speak against against inequality, against corruption, against political power grabs, and against democratic decline. Yet many argue that your political influence stems from inherited power, shaped by your grandmother Indira Gandhi's consolidation of power and wealth during her tenure, and not your performance and not your grassroots leadership. This political dynasty is weakening democratic institutions just as much as Modi's authoritarianism, especially given claims against your competency in leading. How do you reconcile your rise through your family legacy while claiming to amplify marginalized voices? How do you define democracy within your own party that has long been centered around your last name? Thank you.
Well, first of all, I'm not the president. I'm not the president of my party. The president of my party is Mr. Kharge, who's an elected president. Second, look, it's up to the people of India to decide who they feel is representing their issues. If you go and speak to weaker sections, you go and speak to Dalit communities, you speak to backward communities and ask them what they think about the work I'm doing, you'll get the answer. I'm not going to sit here and defend my position. I don't need to. I work for certain ideas, I work for certain ideals, and I protect them. And I work really, really hard to protect them. I don't think there's another politician who's walked 4,000 kilometers across my country. And I don't think there's another politician who has gone so deeply into the suffering of our people, at least in our current situation. So I'm actually quite proud of what I do, and I think I will continue to do it. Of course, there'll be people who will tag me as coming from a dynasty, and that's your prerogative, and I'm very, very happy for you to do so.
Question.
Hi, my name is Aparajit. The BJP, for all of its ideological malevolence, is known for being united, being a cadre-based organization. Everyone at the end of the day is a foot soldier. When I talk to my relatives and friends in New Jersey, where I'm from, they sort of see the Congress Party as susceptible to individual egos, infighting, and things of this nature. So do you think that impression is correct? And also, how do you want to match the grassroots level organization that I think the BJP has sort of perfected over so many generations?
The design of the Congress Party is completely different than the design of the BJP. The BJP is designed to centralize power and transmit a message. The Congress Party is designed to decentralize power and listen to the people. So the last thing we would want to do is have a rigid cadre base like the BJP does. It would destroy our DNA. They're two completely different roles, and we're quite happy to sort of have the internal tensions that we do. It reflects the type of conversation, the type of democratic structure that we have inside. A lot of the people in the BJP hate Mr. Modi, absolutely detest him, but they can't say anything about it. We sit in parliament and we hear what the BJP people have to say about him, but you cannot say it. In our party, people are free to criticize. I mean, we have people in our party who criticize us openly. We're perfectly okay with it. We don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I'd like to follow up on the first student's question.
Could you speak into the microphone? Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we can lower it for you. Yeah.
It's okay. This is okay.
Yeah.
I'm following up on the first student's question. So, in supporting the Sikh community, you mentioned being loved by this community and visiting the Golden Temple. I would say this is not the same as listening to the grievances of minorities. So, I'm curious what concrete steps you've taken to systematically uplift and reconcile with minorities such as Sikhs and Dalits, and what is the tangible impact of these steps you've taken? Thank you.
Look, I'm not in government right now, so I'm not taking policy steps. But if you look at what I do, wherever there is an attack on minorities, wherever there is violence against minorities, I tend to go there, I tend to support them, I tend to work with them. There are multiple cases of atrocities against Dalits, against women, against lower castes, against poor people. And I try and sort of engage with them and help them. But I'm not in a policy position right now. If you look at the work that the Telangana government and the Karnataka government are doing, and particularly what I was talking about the caste census, those are two completely revolutionary ideas, and they will absolutely help the minorities in those states as well.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to us. And my question is sort of, in today's day and age, AI has become more and more important, and the future of India as a great global power will likely depend on AI. What do you think should be AI? What do you think should be India's future on AI, and specifically whether investments in India should be targeting, should be targeting risks that India might have in the adoption of AI in the future, for example, dependence on foreign labs or chip imports from, for example, China. Where do you think India should stand on
I
this?
think AI has to sit on information network and on data. And without access to data, AI doesn't really mean anything. If you look at who owns data today, China owns most production data. They are the people who know how to make mobile phones. They are the people who understand production data. And the United States, at least in the Western world and India, owns consumption data. So Indian AI is going to be restricted by the amount of data that you have access to. So there's a lot of data in the government space, and there's a lot of other data that you can use for AI. But India's limitations as far as AI is concerned is the data the AI is going to sit on. So I would think about ways to improve our access to both consumption and production data.
Yes.
Hi. Going back to democratic backsliding, you sort of affirmed that India's status as a liberal democracy and electoral democracy were sort of, it was sort of diminishing, but didn't really say anything about the consequences of that. So I'm curious as to, given today's political climate, what does it mean to be the opposition, or how do you approach being the opposition?
I mean, the role of the opposition is completely changed now. Changed in 2014. There's now a completely different architecture we deal with. I said some of the consequences I mentioned, some of the consequences of this backsliding, the increase in the size of the deep state, the weakening of the constitutional framework, the weakening of our institutions. And these are all things that create foundational problems in our country.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi, and welcome to Brown.
Thank you.
My question is, we've seen a global movement of right-wing populism, and some have argued that the BJP is part of this. So there's right-wing nationalist leaders in charge in India, as you've said, but also in the United States, many parts of Latin America, and in Europe. On the flip side, though, Prime Minister Modi has marketed himself as representative of the Indian majority, as a part of a majoritarian movement, as a chaiwala, someone who came up from the grassroots. Why do you, as the heir to a very powerful family, think you're the best messenger to contrast this message and relate to ordinary Indians?
I don't view it as being a messenger. I view it much more as being a listener. So what I do is I try and understand the pain that India's people are going through. I try and understand the unfairness that they're going through, and I try and help that. I don't view myself as a messenger in any way. I like to raise the people's voice, you know. Prime Minister of India, of course, apparently has a direct connection with the divine. And he said that, you know, I speak directly to God. I don't profess that capability.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Gandhi. As a scientist, it baffles me how much superstitions and pseudoscience thrive in India, and particularly in past 11 years. And these Babas and godmen have been used as a political tool. So what measures will you take to make people more rational and more logical?
I think people are quite rational. I think the number of people who are affected by what you're speaking about are marginal. They're not in the majority. But I would focus on education. I would focus on, you know, rational scientific education, and I would spend a lot more money on educating people and also providing them with different types of opportunities.
Thank you.
I think a lot of, you know, you get superstitious when you don't have opportunity. You get superstitious when you can't see a future for yourself. So I think there's a relationship between increase in superstition, increase in fear, and the imagination of people.
Yeah.
Hi, Mr. Gandhi. Thank you for being here. My name is Mahir. I wanted to ask you about Bangladesh-India relations today. So two aspects of this. First, former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is in India right now after she fled.
Are you from Bangladesh?
My parents are, so yes.
Yeah.
After she fled, the protest situation in July 2024, and then also the use of rivers and maritime pathways in Bangladesh. I was wondering if you could highlight on this dispute going on, whether India should return Sheikh Hasina back to Bangladesh so that she can be prosecuted for cracking down on those protests.
I'm not gonna poke my nose into that issue.
Okay, then I'll ask you about the maritime. How do you think India and Bangladesh should resolve the maritime issues and river exploitation?
No, I think they should cooperate for a win-win situation, but I'm not going to really comment on the Sheikh Hasina issue because that's, you know, I'm not going to poke my nose in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Gandhi. I've always struggled internally with reconciling the ideals of freedom expressed in the Constitution and talking to the women in my family and them sharing how unfree, unsafe, insecure they feel. To what extent is this a problem in the political domain? Is it a political failure? Does it require a political solution? And what is your outlook on the state of women in India?
It's a huge problem. And not just in politics, across the board in India. I think the way women are treated in India is atrocious. In politics, there's some good stuff that has happened. There's a reservation for women in the third tier of government. And now, in a few years, there's going to be in Lok Sabha and in Vidhan Sabha. So that's good. But I think it's also an attitudinal thing. And I think a lot of work has to be done to change the approach men have towards women in politics, in business, in other spaces. But I would agree with you that India doesn't treat its women very kindly.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for being here. I came in initially with the question in mind, given what's happening with research in the US, as an Indian-born researcher training in the US, what India could do in terms of, you know, retaining or supporting young scientists. But I kind of want to pivot from that because you've mentioned production or bringing back production in India many times. And production, especially if, you know, prioritizing private ownership, can end up actually, you know, further impacting marginalized populations, such as the vulnerable populations that you've mentioned many times, especially if it's, you know, trying to introduce, as the Ayushman Bharat is trying to do, a more privatized view of healthcare or, you know, access to healthcare that is more, you know, based on hospitalization rather than prevention. So how could you reconcile kind of increasing production, possibly increasing privatization of things in healthcare and research, but also maintaining...
No, I don't think you have to increase production, increase private ownership in healthcare and education to do production. I think that government has a role in healthcare and in education and should spend much more money in healthcare and education. But government cannot get into the business of production. You know, it's very difficult for government to start making cars and iPhones, and private businesses have to do that. You can of course shape the environment in a way in which workers have protections and benefits, but I don't think the government can get into the business of production. You know, it's not very complicated to balance those two things.
Yes.
Firstly, thank you so much for being here. My question is about higher education in India. Every year, there are more and more students from India who are seeking to go abroad for higher education because of this perceived gap in the quality of higher education in India. Do you think that such a gap exists? And if so, what would you say are the problems there, and what can we do to bridge that gap? Thank you.
I think there is a big problem in private education, particularly how expensive private education is becoming. I think there's a role for the government, and I think the government does the best education institutions in India are today government institutions. So I think the government cannot step away from this and just leave it to private players. I think there's a space for them to operate in, and they should operate in it, in education at all levels. You know, I was looking at the medical education system, and literally the medical education system is, if you have money, you go in. If you don't have money, there's a wall in front of you, and that's just, there's nothing more than that, right? So that's not the type of education system that we should be pushing.
Dhruv.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I really enjoyed hearing you speak. My question concerns the BJP's online presence. They've gotten really good at spreading propaganda and misinformation on Twitter and WhatsApp, and not just that, they've also moved on to YouTube, where there are a lot of interviews that are one-sided with BJP politicians. My question is, what do you make of this, and what is the opposition and the Congress's strategy to combat this?
I mean, at a very basic level, social media is money, right? So the more money you have, the more social media you have. And the BJP has significantly more money than us. So that's a problem. The BJP also is able to block a lot of the opposition social media. So we are shadow banned. Our YouTube sites, my YouTube site, my Twitter is suppressed, is banned. So we deal with that stuff. But saying that, there is quite a lot of penetration of the opposition in social media, and it's not completely one-sided either. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, Mr. Gandhi.
We
First
have
of all,
5 more minutes left, so maybe let's see how far we go. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, since no one has said it, thank you for being one of the few politicians in India, from India, that take open, unfiltered.
Isn't that? I mean.
Yeah.
Who take open?
Unfiltered questions.
Unfiltered questions
Very
from
good.
the audience.
Yes. No. We are following brown rules.
Yeah.
We can't follow the rules of Indian politics. We are following brown rules. Okay. Yeah. The questions will be absolutely free and unfiltered. You ask. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So in recent years, we have seen an increasing sense of social exclusion and marginalization for almost all minority, but particularly the Muslim community. As a young Muslim, I personally see how social mobility is becoming very, very difficult, with rising instances of discrimination and hostility in both the social and political environment. So my question to you is, given the fragmentation, how do you see overcoming this divide, even with the change of government?
No, look, you must not think that there is no serious resistance to the BJP. The BJP is being contested very effectively in India by the opposition. They do have a huge financial advantage. They have the instruments of the Indian state at their disposal. So we're not really fighting a political party. We are fighting a political party that has captured the Indian state, that has captured the institutions. We don't believe, for example, that the Election Commission is fair to us. We certainly don't believe that security apparatus, the CBI, the ED, etc., are fair to us. They're not. Everybody knows it. Everybody accepts it. Everybody knows that the Indian media is completely captured by the BJP. So it's a difficult fight. But that doesn't mean that you think that there is no resistance. There is massive resistance. And please remember that the BJP barely escaped in the last Lok Sabha election. And we're going to defeat them the next time we fight them in the Lok Sabha, for sure, without any doubt.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Gandhi, I would like to start off with, we love you and we love having you in Brown.
Thank you.
And I'm from the state of Kerala, and I know you've had Wayanad as your constituency. So I would like to say Kerala is a unique state which has 100% literacy, highly educated people, one state that hasn't supported BJP as much. I would like to see whether you had any special things that you gained by interacting with people in Kerala and your thoughts on it, any pearls of wisdom from there.
So, Mr. Gandhi has won elections in Kerala, parliamentary elections twice.
Right, but I've been member of parliament once.
And member of parliament once, and this time he won both his seats, and he has given up his Wayanad seat and is now an MP from Raebareli. But yes, how do you, this is a wonderful question about Kerala.
It was a fantastic experience in Kerala. UP politics and Kerala politics are completely different. No, they operate in different areas. So, for example, in Kerala, the local government is very, very strong. And the panchayat leaders, the ward leaders, the lower rung of the democratic system is very, very strong. And really that makes the job of a member of parliament much easier, because we get a lot of input from them and we work together with them. In Uttar Pradesh, that's not the case. In Uttar Pradesh, there's a separation between the lower rung of the political system and the members of parliament, members of legislative assembly. Also, I mean, I found the society in Kerala to be fantastic. You know,
Malayalis
all knitted together really nicely, open-minded. It was actually a wonderful experience for me, and you know, I keep going back there. I really loved my time in Wayanad.
Yes,
thank you.
I think we'll extend this by maybe 5 minutes, and let's see how many more questions we can get. So let's start with you, and then, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Gandhi, for being here. So you talked a bit about Pakistan and China butting together and being like a national security threat to India potentially. With Hasina Wajid's exit from Bangladesh and this newfound relationship between Bangladesh and Pakistan, how do you see India's relationship with Bangladesh going forward, given that it's like surrounded by both countries?
I mean, it's rocky at the moment, but hopefully we'll mend things and move forward happily. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Your proposition today was that India should partner with the United States to combat China's manufacturing.
Not to combat. We're not saying combat. Combat's a very strong word. To compete with.
Sure, to compete with then. My proposition is that India partners with Taiwan to take down China.
We don't
take down China.
We're not. This is not like.
What do you think?
This goes beyond the realm of possibilities. I'm a political scientist, and you don't take down China like that. Yes.
Right? What do you think?
It's not like. No, we're not thinking of that.
It's not like taking down Lakers by Celtics. That's not what the issue is here. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
What do you think if the two of us, along with the rest of India...
Are you from Taiwan?
What do you think if the two of us, along with Taiwan...
the United States, India, and Taiwan.
Yeah, India, Taiwan partner with the United States to go ahead and then compete with China.
Well,
not take down China.
I've not... See, yeah, first of all, the idea is not to combat or to take on somebody. The idea is that they have a particular model, we have a different model. And how can we partner with each other to strengthen our model? From India's perspective, it's very clear. What we require is the ability to give a future to our people, and we require jobs for that, we require production for that. And we have a good relationship with the United States and a partnership with the United States to do that. The United States deals with Taiwan, but our primary partner in terms of scale, I mean, not to be rude, but I think Taiwan is a tiny player when it comes to the size and the scale of India and the United States. So our primary partnership is with the United States.
Last question, Meruka.
So last year's election offered a very nuanced verdict. It wasn't a full rejection of the BJP and it wasn't a full embrace for the opposition either. And I think that makes the current moment very critical for India's democracy. Given that, how do you plan to create a cohesive, organized agenda for the India Alliance that perhaps moves beyond just opposing the ruling party? What is your long-term, on-ground vision for the India Alliance? And what are you thinking about doing differently for the next elections?
What an interesting political question. Very good.
Well, we oppose the BJP when they attack the idea of the constitution and they attack our institutional framework. And there's going to be no compromise on that, right? And in the last election, that resonated with a lot of people. The second thing, what I said right in the beginning, is that we also oppose the BJP in their social vision for the country. We don't agree, we're not going to accept in India where 3 or 4 or 5 business people control every single piece of infrastructure, every business, every industry. That's not acceptable to us. The fact that if you're an Adani, you can literally just walk in and pick up the Bombay airport and say, I like this airport, and it doesn't matter who owns it, and you can just take it. And you can do that with the defense industry, you can do that with any industry you like. So we don't like that, and we oppose that. So that's on the economic front. And we would focus much more on small and medium industry, the idea of production, and sort of making it a fairer, broader playing field. On the idea of caste, again, we have a completely different vision. We don't want an India where, lower castes, Dalits, tribals do not play. That's not acceptable to us. That is something, that is central to their philosophy. That is something that is central to their idea of India. And we're going to challenge that. We've challenged it in Telangana, we've challenged it in Karnataka, and we're going to challenge it in India. And we feel that that is a very, very powerful instrument for empowering lower castes. So we have 2 completely different visions of our country, right? We don't have a centralizing vision. We think that the Tamils should be allowed to speak their own language, should be allowed to have their own culture. We think the Bengalis should be allowed to have their own culture. We don't want to impose one language, one idea, one culture, right? And these are two completely different visions of the country that are fighting. There are things we agree with them on. I mentioned, for example, Ukraine relationship with the United States. But the fact of the matter is that we have a different view of the country. And so we are going to oppose them, The last election was much, much closer than people think. And I'm pretty confident that the India Alliance has broad agreement on these areas, There's practically no disagreement on the caste census. There's practically no disagreement on the fact that India should focus on small and medium industry, should focus on production, should not allow such massive monopolies. And then the final piece is, the oppressive nature of the regime, where you attack minorities, where you attack Dalits, where you attack Adivasis, you attack journalists. We don't want that type of an India. So those are the type of things that we would do differently.